We're at the Governor's Ag Conference in Kearney, talking now with Jim Wiesemeyer from Informa Economics. Jim, you tried to connect the dots. There are a lot of dots and not much direction in D.C.
Yeah, but you can still connect them. We have a surging dollar, if you will. That'll tend to go higher, not much higher, but higher between now and the end of the year, and that'll make U.S. agriculture less competitive in the export arena. That doesn't mean they won't be competitive. The other connecting of the dots was interest rate policy, and that brings you into the Fed, the debt limit, etc. That'll all be eventually handled. Leaders will eventually lead, but we're going to probably go through a lot of drama in order to get there.
Speaking of drama, one of the big issues is trade. Since early on, the president actually is pushing for it, bipartisan group pushing for TPA. Is that going to happen?
Well, this is one where it is a signature issue for Obama, and he's pulling out all stops. Vilsack and other cabinet members, Commerce Secretary, are working their briefings on the caucuses, in both political parties. But the atmosphere in Washington is still dysfunctional. I hope I'm wrong, but there's going to be high hurdles, not only to get the TPA or fast track, legislation, but definitely the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The reason I say that is a number of lawmakers are beginning to come up with the issues that I think is to give them cover to vote no. That doesn't mean it's going to be absolutely defeated. It means that the president cannot just take this as a one-month focus. He has to continue to follow through in educating not only his party, which typically does not vote for many trade agreements, but he's going to have to counter two of his favorite groups in the political party, the labor unions and the environmentalists. It can be done, but it's going to be a hard sell.
The issue obviously out here that has people are continuing to discuss is the veto of the Keystone XL. The Senate, of course, couldn't get the override. What are you hearing where they go from here? Well,
the Obama administration has studied this for 6 years. I mean, enough said there. This is 24/7 politics right now. Nebraska got steeped into the, giving the White House cover for a while, and they ruled, and there's another splinter, decision. I see it's a pipeline, and I know both sides' arguments, but it got into the political arena where the environmentalists saw XL pipeline as being climate change. And I think it could take until the very waning months of the Obama administration before he outright approves it.
A couple other issues. PLC, ARC, the reports continue to say we're lagging behind in sign-up. Will we get this done?
Well, a farmer is always, and I think a smart farmer is always going to wait until not the last day, but near the last day. Plus, they can always go on what we call the register. If they go in even the last day, as long as you're in that line, you have to sign a register and you can get an appointment. They want to see where prices are going to go. So I don't blame a farmer from holding off. Plus, some of the rules still are not known. Popcorn. Seed corn, which is very, very big in Nebraska. The rules still are not out on the conversion factors for that. How can you sign up for a program if the rules are not even done? It'll happen. I don't know whether there'll be an extension past March 31, but a producer will eventually have to decide what's his best safety net. If he's short-term negative on prices, thinks it's just an aberration, if you're a corn or soybean farmer, the ARC probably pencils out for you because a number of farmers will get big checks come October, not all. If a farmer is pretty bearish for the considerable future, 3 to 5 years, then the PLC plus SCL will probably pencil out for them.
The dietary guidelines this time around has a word named sustainability in it. What's the view on the Hill?
Well, the appropriations bill, the appropriators last year gave a clear signal to Tom Vilsack, Ag Secretary, to not consider that in coming out with the final rules on that. These are just recommendations. In my career, I've gone through several dietary guidelines. These are just recommendations. When you look at some of the people on that committee, it did not surprise me that they got into that area. So I think they'll be relatively reasonable. Yeah, you still have this anti-meat signals that you get from some of the committee members, but I think the lobbying on the part of the producers have been spot on, and I think we're going to have a relatively pretty good final ruling by the Ag Secretary and another cabinet member. Remember, these are just recommendations. Americans don't usually follow them. However, a lot of schools do or have to, and also the military eats a lot of food.
Last question, 2016, we've already had some ideas of people may wanting to run. Is there somebody out there maybe that understands agriculture and maybe agriculture folks should take a look at?
I've learned that no matter what a president says on agriculture, it's who's the Ag Secretary that they pick, because they're the nuts and they're the glue that holds ag policy together. So I really look at that. Yeah. But be that as it may, you have to have the president at least understand the dynamics of the business of agriculture. And I think almost all the candidates or the potential candidates will. When it comes to the renewable fuel standard, it gets a little dicey. We're going to find out a little of that this Saturday with the Iowa Ag Summit, and we could hear some interesting answers. But all in all, I've learned I want to see who the Ag Secretary is going to be.
What about a role for Vilsack in the next administration if it's a Democrat? Some are saying that the speech he gave at Commodity Classic, he was relaxed, but it was really a performance maybe to put him in a position of a number 2.
You know, I didn't say that in my speech here, but I think it's at least 50% odds that if Hillary is the Democratic nominee, he's in the top 3 potential vice presidential candidates. He came out very early for her in her initial run against Obama, and she needs Iowa. So whether or not he can help her get Iowa, still has to be answered. But I think there's a good chance he could be tapped.
Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Jim Wiesemeyer, Informa Economics from the Governor's Ag Conference. That's the Ag View from Kearney. I'm Ken Rogers.